What is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you? Story 1, I was in high school, and we had a prize giving ceremony during school assembly. My name gets unexpectedly called out, so I make my way to the front of the hall to collect my prize. I'm almost at the front when I have a sudden crisis of confidence and think that I must have misheard them, and there's no way they called my name. So I turn around, walk back to my chair, and sit back down. My friends are looking at me and ask me what I'm doing and tell me to get back up there to collect my prize. So I get back up, walk all the way up to the front, and then have another crisis of confidence and think that my friends must have been messing with me. So I turn around and walk back to my chair and sit back down. The hall is silent, and the teachers are on stage looking at me like I just landed from another planet. Story 2, when I was like 5, I shouted at my sister, "You're an idiot, idiot." 21 years later, I've yet to live it down. Edit, pretty sure this is my top comment now. Tempted to share a screenshot with the family and say it was finally worth something, but then they drag up things I've forgotten. Story 3, I ran cross-country in high school. I would lead stretches, meaning that both the boys and girls teams were circled around me. A buddy came up and de-pantsed me and grabbed too many layers. At least the girls team got the rear end, and the guys got the front. I don't think I've ever been trucky embarrassed since. Story 4, in 8th grade, I had a teacher, Mr. Gene. He was 63, had to be over 400 pounds, and had a lazy eye. Mr. Gene was known for having bottles and bottles of Febreze in his room. Whenever he would smell a student stinking, he would stand up out of his chair, go from aisle to aisle sniffing kids, and spraying a cloud of mist over the kid that thought he smelled foul. I had forgot to wear deodorant one day, and I was lucky enough to be rained in the freshness. Story 5, no idea if this is also the case in other countries, but here all shopping carts require a 50-cent or €1 coin to be put in for use. As a kid, whenever I would go shopping with my mom, I would return strayed or lost carts and keep the coin. One day, I was with my mom in a huge hardware store. I saw a cart in the store filled with all kinds of stuff, but my kid logic told me, oh, it's probably from an employee restocking stuff. They wouldn't mind if I were to take it right. So here I'm emptying that cart, planks, cans, the whole lot. I return the cart, collect the 50 cents, and go to the kid corner to watch some TV or something. Here comes an employee joined by a very displeased older lady. She starts screaming at me, borderline crying about how mean I am and anything. Then she walks away. I did not dare to go into that store for years after in fear of her or the employee recognizing me. Story 6, I had the Bacchanal buffet at Caesar's on my last day in Vegas on one of my yearly trips. I was fine until I got on the plane. I had it so bad, and it was going to be diarrhea. However, we were racing a storm, so the flight attendants asked everyone to remain seated. So we could leave. I begrudgingly agreed with my insides on fire. 25 minutes after sitting waiting to take off, they announced we'd have to taxi back and go from the opposite direction for a wind shift. It was another 30-minute delay. Then we finally get into the air and fly right into the storm. It was turbulent and would last another 10 minutes. The seatbelt sign was on, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. Finally, when to go, I exploded as soon as I got in there. Everyone in the back of the plane could smell it when I opened the door. One guy even called me out on it. Oh, well, my fault for eating oysters on a buffet. Story 7, I myself on my 13th birthday coming home from Red Lobster. Haven't set foot in one since not going to risk it again. Edit, thanks for all the upvotes and the wonderful pants-shitting stories. Sometimes happens, D. Story 8, as a kid, I was left-handed, so I tried to deride this kid who was right-handed by saying, "No one writes with their right hand. You're so weird." Turns out the whole class was right-handed. It was so embarrassing. Story 9, in 4th grade, I wrote that I loved my crush in my notebook a few times, and my "See you next Tuesday" of teacher saw that and decided to read it to the class for no reason. Just to embarrass me. I still hate her to this day. She also once shamed my bad art skills by literally taking my artwork and the best artist in the class and saying this is how it should look and this is how it shouldn't. I'm 30 years old, and if I saw her today, I would punch her square in the face. Farted very loldy on Valentine's Day in 4th grade. Story 10, I was waiting for a friend to arrive at my home. Said friend was having a severe cold, so when the doorbell rang, I ran to open the door and jokingly pulled my shirt up so it would cover my nose and mouth to prevent infection. I pulled a little too high. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how I opened the door to a baffled salesman with my hanging out. He blushed. I blushed. We stared at each other for a second before I closed the door and hid in the darkest corner of my house. Story 11, I was working at a skating rink as a DJ, used to throw on my skates to mingle with customers. One of my skate moves was to drop down into the splits and pull myself back up. Like this scene Michael Jackson's Bad Music video. One evening, regular rink rat, child asked me to do the splits. I obliged him, dropped down into the split position. However, this time I didn't come back. Fast forward to having my pants cut off by EMT and being given morphine on the skate floor. while customers continued to skate before being taken to the hospital. I had dislocated my patella. The story doesn't stop there because the skating rink's GM stopped into the hospital to check on me, and I found it slightly odd that he rotated awkwardly from across the open space in the room to around the bed, cutting through the medical machines, almost knocking them over and cables to stand against the gap in the wall to talk to me by my head. Being doped up, I did not realize at the time that my patient gown was thrown open and he saw all of my business. TLDR, I did the splits on purpose on roller skates and dislocated my kneecap. While on the clock, boss might have seen my junk. Story 12, I once had diarrhea in the middle of class in 3rd grade. I was smart enough to wait until everyone left a recess and asked to go to the school nurse before anyone found out, but that memory still haunts me to this day. Story 13, walked into a pole. Hard. With all my school nearby, it was the end of school. I was by myself and felt awkward already and felt the need to say sorry to the pole. And then I realized and then proceeded to say, "Wait, you're a pole." Just kept my head down and walked swiftly on after that. Story 14, I got my period for the first time ever at 10 years old on school camp. No one had ever told me or educated me about it. I was scared and so embarrassed and was using loo roll to try and stop it from leaking everywhere. After a swim, I obviously had bled all over my swimming shorts. The teacher came up to me and told me that I need to sort myself put because I was making the other girls uncomfortable. I didn't know how to sort myself out. Thankfully, 2 days into this nightmare, a kind mother noticed what had happened and gave me some pads. But yeah, worst class camp ever. I was so embarrassed. Story 15, my freshman year of college on my 19th birthday. There was a fire in my dorm. I was in the shower when the alarm went off. Had to jump out, and right then, a male RA runs in yelling that we need to evacuate immediately. I grabbed the closest towel I could find and barely covered myself up in time for him to look over. I then had to stand outside in nothing but a towel for over 2 hours while the fire was put out and the building was cleared. The fire was caused by some idiot microwaving tin foil. I couldn't call anyone to come get me because it was the first week of school and I hadn't made any friends who had a car yet. It was mildly frustrating. Story 16, I was in the 6th grade. They used to line us up after recess and dismiss each class at a time. I go, leaving a couple of girls in the other class giggling at something, so I was feeling confident in walking up the stairs, looking smiling at them when my head hits the middle partition bar thing between the double doors. My head bounds back with a huge thud, and the teacher's like, "OMG, are you okay?" I pick up my ego and went inside. Story 17, I was at my best friend's birthday party 3 years ago. 10 people sitting around having a great time. I hadn't seen one friend for a year, and she told me in front of all the people that I've gotten fat. It was really embarrassing. The whole room went quiet, and everyone looked at me. I excused myself to use the restroom, and her, my best friend, telling her that she's tactless. She apologized that, "Yeah, I just wondered if something has happened." It still haunts me because she was also one of my best friends during high school, and we had such a great time together. Even though it worked out great for me, started working out and have lost a lot of weight, it still left a big scar. Like, was she just friends with me because I was skinny before? Say that privately. Don't ever embarrass someone like she did. Haven't talked to her since that party, and needless to say, I don't even want to. Story 18, I was aggressively arrested in front of most of my coworkers and several hundred airline passengers because slack-jawed yokels of the Boone County, Kentucky court system can't spell and confuse my last name with a similar last name. Story 19, I thought I was the only one at work one early morning. There was zero chance any other worker would be there for hours. I was listening to loud music on my headphones, did it loud, vibrating, juicy one, turn around in my chair to see the overnight cleaning lady standing right behind me. She looked quite ill. Story 20, I don't know if it's like this in other countries, but in Norway the buses have 2 groups of 4 seats that face each other in addition to regular bus seats. So I was getting on the bus, and because I'm in a rush to find a seat before the bus starts to move, I head to one of the 4 seat groups with an old lady sitting across from me. The bus was very full, so this was the only seat available. But before I got the chance to put my belt on, the bus had started to move, but came to a sudden stop. I plunged forward, and I accidentally face-planted into the poor old woman's sizable bosoms. Story 21, when I was 26 or so, my brother and I planned to meet up with my dad at a high school basketball game once. Showed up, saw my dad in his familiar spot, standing along the railing, looking down on the court from above. Even when facing away, dude's easy to pick out a lineup on account of his signature olive green winter coat, faded blue jeans, and Air Monarchs thought I'd mess with him by going up and just standing uncomfortably close to his body until he noticed my presence. He gets locked in a basketball, so he didn't acknowledge me at first. So I got ever closer. He finally turned around. Wasn't my dad. I looked 15 feet to my left, where my dad and brother looked on, bemused, befuddled, and disappointed. Began apologizing profusely to the stranger I'd accosted, but couldn't string words together well. So I just began pointing at him, and then at my dad, and then back. Graciously, the stranger in question acknowledged that he and my father were wearing the same dad uniform, and he smiled and nodded his head in understanding, which only made things slightly less embarrassing. Story 22, I wasn't very popular in high school, so I never really got invited to the big parties. Well, one day, my friend who was friends with the popular kids got invited to a party at one of their houses, and he brought me. A lot of the people who I thought were stuck up turned out to be really nice and offer me free beer. So anyway, it's like an hour into this party, and someone's dad owned a pizza joint in the town and had a bunch of pizzas delivered. I was hammered off of like 3 beers, so I chowed down. About another hour goes by, and I had to really bad, so I told my friend we should leave soon. Unfortunately for me, he was trying to get laid, and as high school teens, I couldn't stop him, plus he drove. So I tried to pinch it off for another hour or two, but I had a few more beers. This is before I knew what beer does to your stomach, and I needed to, it was one of those ones where you can feel it almost poking out from any change in pressure in your bowels. So I went to the bathroom. One person was in there, so I decided to wait. But it was some drunk chick throwing up, so a line started forming, and it was nothing but the hot chicks from school. Then it was my turn, but I couldn't look at everyone and be like, never mind, when I just waited 20 minutes to go. I finally got inside and took the craziest dump of all time, like it poked out of the water, easily 16 Corix. I tried to put soap in the toilet and spray the air, but nothing helped. I left, and I could tell the girl that went in behind me instantly knew what happened. She made that disgusted face that you only make when you smell. Anyway, I find my buddy and basically drag him out of the party, and we go home. He was pissed saying I blocked him, but he and that chick never did anything ever again, so I didn't feel too bad later on. And that's my most embarrassing story, or how I never got invited to another party in high school. Story 23, my 2-year-old brother shat in the ocean while he was with my mom. And while later 10-year-old me managed to stumble upon it while diving and thought it was a sea cucumber, I proudly presented it to my mom, to her horror, before she asked where I had found it. She still won't let me live down the time I discovered a sea cucumber. Story 2416, hadn't lost the V card yet, still pretty shy to make a move. Spring break Caribbean W friends, one of whom I had a crush on. So we go back to the hotel, just us two, after being in the ocean. She's in her 2-piece, and we're spooning on the bed. Was too chicken to even kiss her. Then I feel it coming. 015, trying to think of anything to make it stop. 30 now. She's getting an idea what's happening. Boom, 100000. She just gets up and leaves. Obviously, then it retreats, and then they're just replaying it over and over. God, that was embarrassing. Story 25, junior year of high school. Taking a math final, had been eating a steady diet of cheese sticks and protein bars all day, so stomach was understandably disturbed. Squeaking farts out all class, because this wasn't my first rodeo, so I knew which were going to be silent, and which weren't, or so I thought. 30 minutes in, and I make the fatal error. On a hard plastic chair, I let loose the loudest, wettest of my young adult life. It breaks the silence, and every single head turns. I can feel the heat coming off of my face like jet exhaust. My teacher just stands up and goes, all right, and like a swarm of bees being dispersed, all of the people in the room turn back to their tests. Finish the test and book it. Story 26, I'm in PE. And the idiot I am is farting. I got cocky because the farts could not be heard and they didn't smell, but oh Lord, no. The universe wanted me to die. As I'm trying more, the loudest comes out. The PE room has some great acoustic because it was loud and clear. Everyone knew it was me because the noise came from my area, the middle of the room. To add to the embarrassment, the smell, I farted in a room full of 12-year-olds. Let's just say no kid talked to me the whole day, and everyone was laughing at my pour. That is what I get for getting too cocky with my farts. The moral of the story is don't in front of your classmates. Story 27, I've shared this story before, but when I was 8 years old, we took a field trip to the Field Museum here in Chicago. During our lunch break, I decided to wander off to the gift shop and see what they had. I had a huge crush on this girl named Victoria in my class, and I saw this ladybug ring on sale for a couple of dollars. I knew she liked ladybugs, and I had money my parents gave me to buy something at the shop, so I decided to buy the ring and give it to her. I was really nervous and kept waiting for the right time to do it. I eventually decided to just go for it and walked up to her near the end of the trip. She was with some of her friends, which made me more nervous, but I finally found the courage to do it. She looked at the ring and laughed. Her friends joined her, and she then tossed the ring in the trash. I was completely devastated and tried hard to hold back my tears. Even though I'm over it now, that completely my confidence with girls for a long time. Looking back, I may have embarrassed her too, giving it to her in front of her friends, which is why she reacted that way, but whatever the case, it's probably the most embarrassed I have been in my life. Story 28, friend sitting next to me, says I'm trying to get A. A guy in front of us shouts out friend's name has A, and one of my other friends shout out it's because he saw insert name of girl. Then the guy sitting next to me gets up and charges towards the other guy, but gets held back. Then the teacher asks what's going on, and he begins it with Big Blue Boy 3, kept looking at my, and then everyone just stared at me. Luckily, I never had to explain why, because no one talked about it again. Story 29. I was 8, my brothers were 5. We were at the hands of a frustrated single mom on a long car ride. I had to go bad. I told my mom after like 3 hours in a car with 3 children fighting in the back, and she yelled, "You're going to have to hold it. I'm not pulling over," so I accidentally crapped my pants. My brothers dissolved into furious laughing, and my mom take a whiff and screams, "Did you just your pants?" To this day, my brothers, who remember nothing from their childhood, regularly bring this up at pretty much every family gathering. They're 37 now. I basically relive this every Christmas. Merry Christmas to me. Can't wait for this year. It was the first time I got my period. I was embarrassed to have my period at the time, so I didn't tell my mom. BTWM in the 7th grade, so I have no idea how to deal with it. Right, I get up to go to school and put on my uniform. The pants were khakis. So basically right away, I was doomed. I get to school right, I'm in first period, and it's bleeding through as I'm sitting in a chair. So I got up to turn my paper in, and people are staring at me with that face like, what the? So I sit down, and my friend, who was thankfully in the class, goes, "Girl, you're leaking. I'm over here like WTF. Do I look like a faucet?" So then she leans in closer to my ear and goes, "You bled through your pants." I turn bright pink, and I raise my hand and ask to go to the nurse. And if you thought this was bad, trust me, it gets worse. As I'm walking through the hallway, the class bell rings. So now everybody is walking throughout the hall, and they can all see that my pants are bright red. Just to make it worse, some stupid, annoying kid comes up and frickin' screams, "Look, ITS a baboon." Yeah, I couldn't live that nickname down for the rest of the year. Story 30. I farted really loud when the class was quiet in 3rd grade. I thought people would forget, but about 5 years later, some from my class brought it up on the bus. Story 31. I've told this story on Reddit before. Not sure if it was my most embarrassing, but certainly in the top 5. I was about 14, don't remember my exact age. Although I could reverse engineer it. I had never kissed a girl, never really had a girlfriend. I was a gawky and introverted nerd living in a little town. Didn't have many friends, and not all that crazy about most of the few I did have. I was the smartest kid in my class, but scrawny and unathletic. In the span of a few years, I had somehow gone from being one of the cool kids in my grade to being one of the people who are mostly ignored by the cool kids. I felt alone and isolated most of the time. My older brother gets married, and they have a major wedding reception at her parents' house in a town about 10 miles away from my hometown. 2 bars. No one cares if kids are drinking. This house is an old mansion in a hick town in the Midwest. Has about 20 rooms. I've had some drinks and am feeling good. When someone tells me that one of the bridesmaids has a little sister my age who thinks I'm cute, I eventually find her. It's a huge party, and we chat for a bit and hit it off. She's cute and seems bright and funny and nice. I have visions of having a real girlfriend for the first time. I feel like this could be a turning point in my life. I met a cool girl, and she actually seems to like me. Between the alcohol buzz and the unexpected situation, I feel like a little kid who has come downstairs on Christmas morning and found everything he wants under the tree, plus a bunch of other great stuff he didn't even know existed. We roam off, holding hands, and find an empty room. We sit on a little couch and talk some more. Finally, I work up my nerve and I kiss a girl for the first time in my life. And she pukes in my mouth and runs out of the room. TLDR, alcohol bringeth, and alcohol taketh away. Story 32. After going to McDonald's earlier in the day, I pulled a ketchup packet out of my pocket and opened it in her hair, instead the condom in the other pocket. Those rigid edges got me at 17. Story 33. It's long. It starts really slowly. Bear with it. It's eventually worth it. Backstory, my job has me working from home. Home was fine, but Wi-Fi decided if you can live anywhere, why not someplace fun? We were able to find a waterfront place in middle of nowhere, Florida, with a dock and boat lift. Not expensive, since, as I mentioned, it is in fact in the dead center of nowhere. After about 4 years of enjoying the fishing during the days as an experiment wife, and I turn on the light at the end of the dock, and I toss the bait net at about 10 p.m., up came about half a dozen large shrimp, tossed again, same result. Virtually every throw brings up shrimp. We can't stop. This is great. Much later we realize it's now 1 a.m. We have pounds and pounds of delicious shrimp. So fresh they are kicking, but no ice to hold them till morning. I need to go buy ice, and Town Pop 2000 is an automated ice dispensary where you stick in money and a 20-pound bag of ice drops out. Am dressed for cast netting, a swimsuit, t-shirt, sandals. After netting for hours, the shirt is much too fishy for the car. So I take off the shirt, sit on a towel, so my wet shorts don't foul the seat, and drive to the ice house. No one will see me at 1:30 a.m. in middle of nowhere at the off-road ice house. or care if they do. Ice House money taker machine is broken. No ice from there. The all-night gas station convenience store on the highway through town is open, and they sell ice. As I walk to the door, I see the sign, no shirt, no shoes, but I have to have ice. I step inside. The counter is manned by two ladies. I'm sorry I'm not properly dressed, but something has come up, and I have an unexpected, sudden, and desperate need for a couple of bags of ice. Can I please buy ice dressed like this? Or must I go get a shirt and come back? Smile, thinking, please, please, please. Just sell me the ice. They look me over and evidently decide that it's boring working the wee hours in a town where no one is out at night. Play me for a little bit first. Hun, you can come any time like that. That sign is just for the nasty OL oysterman. Come on in. Stay a while. What in the world do you need ice for at this time of night anyway, etc., etc.? Eventually, I told them the required number of jokes. They took my money and I got my ice. One would think that was embarrassing, but that's just because you don't yet have the ultimate embarrassment benchmark, which follows. A couple of days later, Saturday morning, wife and I are driving out of town. We stop in the same store to get coffee and a couple chicken biscuits. The place is packed, bustling, loud, and all they have left for breakfast is hot wings and corn dogs. I get coffee and get in a long line. At the counter is one of the ladies from a couple of nights ago. Harried voice, did you find everything you were looking for? Well, I was hoping for 2 chicken biscuits, but I see you've had a really busy morning. Just a coffee will do. Thanks, sudden interest. Hey, I don't recognize you, but I know your voice from somewhere. I said 130 in the morning. Face lights up, shouts the back room, HEY. ITSR fun. Wet guy, except now HES wearing clothes, and he needs a couple of chicken biscuits. Place falls dead silent, and I can feel every single set of eyes locking on me, speculatively. From the back, OH, Lordy, we're all out, but tell him T.O. hang on. He'll put together something, somehow, after an amazingly short but eternally long 1 minute, in which not a single soul in the store said a word or moved a muscle. The other lady comes out with 2 hot chicken biscuits. I smile, thank them both, pay and leave. At the door, I glance back. Every soul is still rooted in place, watching me leave. Even the next person in line has not stepped forward yet. The only motion is the 2 ladies enthusiastically waving bye-bye. And that is why we have to move out of state. Story 34. I was at a rooftop after-party at a nice hotel following a wedding and reception. Attended by the bride and groom, another friend, and guest of the same wedding, said she wanted to go downstairs and dance during a song of another wedding's reception. Me, being several champagnes into the evening, thought it sounded like a funny, bold thing to do. Wedding crashers, LOL. No one will mind, right? Wrong. My friend walked in first and blended in. Unfortunately, the second I walked in, the bride spotted me, and before I made it halfway across the dance floor, her extremely drunk and Napoleonic groom started screaming at me, asking me why I was there, and to get the out, over and over, gesturing accordingly. He followed me out of the ballroom, and the bride realized she unleashed a crazy person on me. Honestly, I felt so bad for her. I was mortified. I apologized to the bride. It was like 5 years ago, and it took me a long time not to feel extreme anxiety every day about it. And every once in a while, it still bothers me. Edit, to be clear, there was no malicious intent on our part whatsoever, although it certainly was a dumb thing to do. We were not seeking to make a joke at the bride's expense or anything of that nature. We thought we'd be able to briefly pop in and out unnoticed. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I had diarrhea while scuba diving. Story 35. I am the oldest out of all my siblings and cousins. We were at the cottage swimming and sunbathing on the dock, and I was wearing a one-piece bathing suit that I thought looked pretty nice on me. I was about 10 or 11. My aunt, who has no filter, stared at my chest and proclaimed to everyone who was present, "Oh look, Jenny's developing little breast buds." I wanted to die. Story 36. Got my first period during middle school hours, and my jeans got ruined with blood. My first period happened my first year of middle school. I went to the bathroom and saw all the blood, and I freaked out because I knew what they were, but I didn't really understand at the time. You know, I stayed in the bathroom crying because I thought I was dying. My teacher came to get me thinking I was skipping, and I cried to her saying I was bleeding internally. What I said, exactly, sorry, LOL. She sighed and explained it in layman's terms for me and escorted me to the nurses to get a new pair of pants and underwear. My classmates bullied me for it for at least 3 months. Story 37. My first kiss. I was 14, and I had just discovered I liked girls. Naturally, my first instinct was to do big public gestures to profess my undying love for this girl who was my one true love. God, I cringe just thinking about this. I had it all planned out. I had flowers and chocolates in my locker. I turned up at school that day, ready to tell her how I felt. There was just one problem. I was scared, terrified even. I had several classes with her, and every time the bell rang, I'd curse myself for not just getting up and doing it. There was an unseen force holding me back. Everyone else knew I liked her, and the few people that knew I had plans for today had done their schoolyard duty in ensuring everyone knew about it by lunchtime. At lunch, she approached me with a coy smile and asked how I was doing and held my hand. She was so calm and relaxed, and I felt like a puddle of goo and anxiety. So I ran away. Literally, I ran off the school grounds to regroup and think of another plan. A few hours pass, and my plan is formulated. My strategy is simple. I was overthinking it. I would meet her after school before she caught the bus, and that would be my time. It was perfect. The final bell rang, and I rushed over to the buses, saw her waiting in line. I took a deep breath, nearly vomited in my mouth, and ran towards her, tapped her on the shoulder, and went in for a kiss without saying anything. I remember this vividly, and it keeps me up at night, sometimes still. 18 years later, time was in slow motion. I had closed my eyes in the same way you do when you're eating something gross or jumping out of an airplane. Adrenaline was in my ears, pumping, pumping, pumping. She was an angel. And as it turned out, she thought I was kind of cute. So when she saw me going in for a kiss, she decided to help me out by leaning in and meeting me halfway. With my eyes closed and my auditory perception all but compromised, I misjudged the distance and came in too hard to make a safe landing. Our lips met fast, too fast. There was too much force, and out lips parted under the pressure, and our teeth made contact. I love my calcium and have very strong bones. She never stood a chance. I chipped her tooth, and she started crying. I had effectively ran up to her and headbutt her in the face to anyone watching. It was a total disaster. She never spoke to me again after that, and I was off girls for another few years. Story 38, asked a girl I liked if she maybe wanted to get some lunch sometime on her break or just to have a casual chat. She thanked me for asking, but said she didn't know if that would be appropriate given she had a boyfriend, and given it was the first time ID actually asked someone this. Yep, ID consider it a major embarrassment. Story 39, in kindergarten, my jacket zipper got stuck. So being the brilliant problem solver I am, I just pulled the jacket over my head. My shirt came with it. I'm a girl, everyone pointed and laughed. I still cringe, and I'm 24. Story 40, in 7th grade, we had a math teacher we all hated and pretty much bullied. She was A to us, so we were A to her. Easy as that. One day our class clown decided it would be a funny idea to turn the clock forward an hour and a half so that we would be dismissed early. Now, since the teacher wasn't exactly smack bang in the middle of puberty like the rest of us and actually had a brain, she realized that immediately. Well, I didn't, for whatever reason, noon felt like telling me what was going on either, so that during the last lesson, I was the only idiot in that room. Now, obviously, some people began to give her teacher little hints, telling her it's already so late and they were so tired, so that just maybe she'd let us go early. Later, they straight up told her it's time to end the lesson. When she just replied, "Yeah, I ain't playing your game," I began to realize that something was off. Why isn't she letting us go home now? Now she's letting us pay by letting us stay longer. So I began to get more pissed by the minute. Then the usual back and forth during our math class happened. We annoying her, she giving sharp replies. After 30 minutes, she then said, "You know what? Now I'm not letting you go for further 40 minutes. 40 minutes? It's already been 30 minutes overtime. She's not allowed to that. Now, those 40 minutes were the regular end of the lesson, which means she was absolutely in the right. I, however, jumped up from my seat and packed my stuff hoping the others would follow. But instead, they asked what I'd be doing. I just replied him not having that and stormed out of the classroom furiously. My teacher then followed me and was the first one to tell me that I was indeed just pranked out of this world. They'll never forget this walk of shame going into the classroom again, with everyone staring at me in disbelief. The 40 minutes sitting in class knowing that everybody was thinking about me was absolutely terrible. Although my best friend to this day is telling this story literally everyone who barely gets to know me. Story 41, I had just finished working out at my small local gym, just a single room with 8 weight machines and a couple ellipticals, etc. I started chugging some water, but it went down the wrong way, and I started to cough furiously, and in my attempt to hold the water down, it spewed all over the wall, the guest book, a poster, a little device we used to upload our exercise data, everything. The whole room was full. There was no music or anything to cover things up, so it was really obvious what I had done. I half-heartedly did what I could to clean things up, but the damage was done. I avoided everyone's eyes when I left. The next time I came back, the poster and the guest book had been replaced, since I had soaked them so bad. Hello.